This is something that happened to I and a friend as kids, and is more of a disturbing discovery than a disturbing person. We were probably somewhere between 11 and 14 at the time, and it was in the middle of the summer. It was also something I didn't really come to understand until much later in life, when there was no way to resolve what he and I had seen. My house was in a valley, and there were a few houses along the street with it, but the hills on either side were underdeveloped forests back then. Me and my friend would hike up the hill behind my house, through a few miles of woods and out the other side where there was a neighborhood that had a farm stand style shop with local honey and a bunch of cheap candy. We also just hung out in the woods a lot and would tell each other scary stories as we headed back home. None of them were all that scary looking back on the ones that I can remember, but younger me was always a little spooked on the way back to my house. One dusk, while we were heading back for the day, I spotted a bit of white in a mound of moss. As a kid, I was always looking for interesting stuff to take home and collect, so I was immediately ready to go dig it out of the moss. When I did, I found it was a pelvis bone. It had probably been there for a long time. I remember it was dirty and worn away slightly from time. I was pretty scared for a second, but I remembered that all sorts of animals have pelvis bones, and that this one must be from a deer or something. In my childish need to be a know-it-all and jump in at the first non-frightening possibility, I told my friend it was a deer pelvis. We marveled at it for a bit, but put it back because I knew my dad would be mad if we brought back an old deer bone. I forgot about it for a long time. Many years went by, but eventually I learned more about the shape of human bones as opposed to animals. I remember the shape I found quite clearly. It was almost certainly a human bone, and the size wouldn't have been an adult. I wonder what else was in that mound, who it might have been, and if my finding it could have given someone somewhere some closure. I went back and looked for it twice, thinking I might remember the part of the woods it had been in, but I never found it again. I love this subreddit, and I am sure this is just the first of a few stories I will post on here. This first story happened to my father. My dad had many jobs throughout his life, and in the 70s he was a pig farmer. He would raise pigs and sell them by the pound at auction. Then he would deliver them to the buyer. Well, one time he was delivering a load of pigs to a buyer way up in the buttfuck nowhere, Arkansas, and one of the pigs got away. The pig ran into some woods next to the property, and my dad finished unloading the rest of the pigs before going up to find the one that ran away. It took him a while to find the pig, and my dad says he honestly wished he hadn't. When my dad found the pig, it was dead with an arrow sticking out of its side. Just before my dad walked up to the pig's body to see who the hell had shot his pig, he heard two men coming from deeper in the woods, whooping and hollering. My dad ducked behind a tree just as two really gnarly looking fuckers came up running to the pig. They were both wearing overalls with nothing underneath. One of them had a really gnarly looking cleft lip. The other guy was just really old and skinny. The two men pick up my dad's pig and slice open its stomach, spilling its guts onto the ground. Then the two men dragged the pig off and my dad followed them. The two men walked up to a small ramshackle shack that had 4 people sitting on the front porch. As the men reached the house, a woman comes out with a boy, who was probably too old to be breastfed, attached to her right breast. My dad said that almost every single one of them had a physical deformity, so he noped the fuck out of there. Hillbilly hill people, let's not meet.